Hi, good afternoon. I hope everyone has been enjoying day 2 of Anishinaabe Asking Nations Best Practices in First Nation Education Forum. So this afternoon, we are going to have a presentation on capturing Indigenous voice in the English classroom. And we're going to be welcoming Michelle Sandberg, Taryn Vachon, Brittany Tetreault from Red Lake District High School. Michelle Sandberg has been teaching for 16 years and has honors specialists in history and reading. Teaching her students about Indigenous experiences is a moral imperative. Brittany Tetreault has been teaching for 9 years and has an honors specialist in social sciences. Brittany is engaging, innovative, and works to bring authentic voice to her classroom. Taryn Vachon brings a school leadership perspective and holds true to the goals of reconciliation in her professional and personal life. Welcome all of you, and we're looking forward to your presentation today.
Good morning. Hello. Hi. I'm going to do my best to share here. Oh, there we go. And we will just expect Matt to interrupt us if anything is not going according to plan. Okay, welcome to our session on capturing Indigenous voices in the secondary English classroom. We are coming to you from Red Lake District High School today, way up north from Red Lake, and we are part of the Kuwait and Patricia District School Board.
I would like to acknowledge the fact that we are coming together today in this school year on Turtle Island. Let's take a moment to honor the traditional inhabitants and original stewards of Turtle Island, the Anishinaabe peoples. May we gather strength, wisdom, and peace from the vegetation, animals, and all life on Turtle Island. May our intentions be respectful and honest as we strive to make our ways in the world and connect to the land. May we take care of the land as Mother Earth takes care of us.
Thanks, Michelle. So,
Sorry, I am going to interrupt you for a second. Your presentation isn't full screen. I think you shared the wrong window.
oh, come on. Okay, just a minute. It looks full screen on mine, but let me try again. The best laid plans here. Oh. You can zoom 1,000 times and still have the occasional glitch. Is that better, Matt?
Yep, that's better. We see the zoom settings at the top there.
Okay, I can do that. How's that?
And nope, we still see it.
Really? I moved it, but I don't know why you can still see it. How about now?
There, now it's gone.
Okay.
All right, you're good.
So, welcome. Those were great bios of us, and I would just add that I am the principal at Red Lake District High School, but for a very long time was an English teacher and had the honor of teaching with both Michelle and Brittany, and we're really excited today to bring you some of what we have learned over about the past 2 years as we've gone on this journey together. You guys have anything to add?
Well, we wrote down many bios, so we did want to talk a little bit about what drives our work, and mine mostly is equity, my belief in equity, and my Indigenous son.
Yeah, and for me, my journey with this started right from when I was quite young. I grew up in Red Lake and was lucky enough to have really good relationships with all my family and a lot of good mentors and like a lot of good experiences with camping and fishing and being on the land here. But I was always very curious about other cultures and other places and other perspectives, like worldviews. So I always wanted to travel, and I really love to travel, but before I could do that, my traveling came through reading books and reading the experiences of others and kind of connecting to people and places and things that I wouldn't have had an opportunity to necessarily connect to until I read those stories. So it just made a lot of sense for me as a teacher in an English classroom to like take this very important step to including more Indigenous voices in the classroom and bringing those stories and those voices to our students so that they could also make those connections and get introduced to perspectives they may not have. So that was kind of what drove my journey into this room.
So we have our next few slides. Our first one's our agenda, and I will say one of the things we have worked through as a school is Indigenous ways of knowing and looking at things from a different perspective. So we tried to make an agenda today that was not linear with a start and an end, but rather one that is cyclical and reflects the fact that our work is never done. So we will be walking you through our journey. The big section is on resources and strategies, and finally how we have supported our learners through all the work we've done in the past 2 years, bringing Indigenous voice into the classroom. So I will speak a little bit to our journey. Last year, the Kuwait Patricia District School Board moved towards bringing NBE 3U into all of its secondary classrooms. And this was a move away from English, where we might have looked at Shakespeare and other authors, largely not Canadian authors. So our journey together as a board involved, we had 4 professional development days set aside, and we really used these days to come together as a group of teachers. There were days when it was upwards of 20 of us, and we would examine our perspectives. We spent a lot of time talking about the curriculum. We spent a lot of time talking about how to assess students. And we also were very lucky to spend 4 afternoons with Kevin Lamoureux, who works at the University of Winnipeg and is a sort of, I don't want to say a renowned expert, but he is. He certainly gave us a lot of not only sound advice, but he really fueled our passion to do this work. The next thing we did was we developed professional learning communities, and if you work in education at all, you're familiar with PLCs. We identified a need, we worked together to come up with strategies, and then we measured our outcomes. And this is just part of the work the 3 of us did, along with this wonderful group of educators, and without this work we wouldn't have been where we are today. Finally, the outcomes and next steps at Red Lake District High School. We have a full implementation of MBE 3U, 3C, and 3E at this school. We have deep and rich conversations related to cultural responsiveness all the time. We have actually added Indigenous text into each grade. So one of the outcroppings of bringing MBE to our building was we got to spend a lot of time and a lot of money on Indigenous text. And what we did was we prioritized a variety of texts and a variety of grades and levels. So no matter what English, what grade, you will get some Indigenous text at Red Lake District High School. There is an increased ownership of the calls to action by staff and students, as we will show you in a slide later on. And in a recent survey, 50% of our students stated that they have learned about the experiences and achievements of Indigenous peoples this year. So I was proud of that number. It's far from where we want to be, but it is still telling us that we are doing better than we once were. Our next slide just reflects some of the work we've done. I'm going to play one video on September 30th this year. We had a student who was in MBE with Ms. Sandberg offered to write and read the land acknowledgement, and this land acknowledgement was actually shared not only with our school community but with our board community. So I'm going to play that for you now.
Bonjour, and welcome to the end of our first month together here at Red Lake District High School. Today is the day of truth and reconciliation and Orange Shirt Day. First, it is important that we begin our assembly today by acknowledging that we are gathered on this land, which resides in the territory of Treaty 3 of the Anishinaabe people and the people of the Métis Nation. We are on the traditional lands of the First Nations community of Lac Seul. We acknowledge this land and its original peoples as the first step towards reconciliation. Our grade 11 NBE 3U class has learned about the important roles all of us play in reconciliation. For us, this means not just through learning, but through action. But this doesn't just mean wearing an orange shirt. It means wearing the shirt and understanding why we do this every year on September 30th. It means being open-minded, it means listening to the stories of Indigenous people, and it means caring for one another. Reconciliation means listening to the struggles Indigenous people go through now and looking for solutions. It means listening to their stories of the past and welcoming their healing with open arms. It is recognizing how horrible the Indigenous people of our country have been treated for decades, and it is recognizing that we are all people and that they are just children. Our class believes in the equality, fair treatment, and closure all Indigenous people deserve. Miigwech.
Miigwech, Rachel, and thank you MBE 3U for putting today's assembly together.
Amazing. I love that video of Rachel. I really think if Rachel's sentiment could be how the students of RLDHS feel, I'm very honored to know that. At this point, I'm going to step a little bit away because I'm in control of the mouse, and we are going to spend. Sorry. There's one more slide.
That's okay. We just also wanted to share kind of our thinking around why we should incorporate Indigenous voices. We had a lot of conversation around reconciliation and the calls to action in education. So we just had a couple quotes that kind of exemplify why we're doing this work in our school. So I just want to point out the Rob Canoe one on the right-hand side of the screen. We have a choice in life. We can choose how we are going to behave. We can determine whether we reflect the good around us or lose ourselves in the darkness. And I think one of our conversations that we had in working with Kevin Lamoureux was that there was some talk about how we were a little bit nervous to engage in this at first, mostly because we didn't want to do it badly. We didn't want to inadvertently create more harm, and we really wanted to make sure we were doing it justice. Bringing authentic Indigenous voices into the classroom and making sure we did it in a good way. And Kevin Lamoureux actually kind of spoke to that to us a little bit in saying, he understood a little bit of our hesitation and a little bit of our concern, but to simply not do it is not the path forward. And so we had to be a little bit brave and with ourselves and with our students and say that we are going to try it. We are going to make a choice to reflect the good and try to move forward with positivity, and so we don't lose ourselves in the darkness. So we also have a quote from Kevin Lamoureux as well, saying that this work for us is less of an academic pursuit and more about a healing pursuit.
So where we were hoping to spend the most of our time today, we're in the resources and strategies section, and I'm going to let Michelle and Brittany take over here because they are the ones on the ground doing the work.
Hi everybody, we do have a resource list there as well. These are just some of the works we worked with, but this is this huge list that we compiled through our board of different resources, and some of them are annotated for you. If you're interested in those.
And we can share these.
Yes, and we can share them, and they're all broken down by categories. There are a lot of children's books. I love children's books in the classroom.
Do you want me to go back, Michelle?
No, it's okay. I just said the air kicked in.
Oh, yes.
So I feel like I'm gonna have to talk loudly now. So one of the things when we moved to NBE, and that's the Indigenous Literature course that can also be your grade 11 English course. Taryn had approached me and she said, what do you think if this was 2 years ago before we actually made the move, do you think if we taught your ENG 3U course as an NBE course? And I said, I don't have any texts. And she said, well, get texts. So I did pick ones that I knew already. And I really, really liked that. I'll get there. Okay. So we did read From the Ashes. The students really connect with that one. It's Jesse Thistle's memoir. His family abandoned him. He lives with his grandparents, gets kicked out for drugs, and he's homeless, but now he's working on his PhD, and he's associate professor at the University of Toronto. University of Toronto, and the kids really connect with this turnaround story. Now, Jesse Thistle was doing classroom visits, but now that he's finishing his dissertation, he is not at the moment. And then Moon of the Crusted Snow, somebody in our English group did send that to me as well. And it's a story of survival. Like if you look out, I don't know about Thunder Bay, but if I look out my window right now, it looks like Moon of the Crusted Snow. So this
That is
crusty, cold, nasty snow, and then all of a sudden their power goes out and all their communications, and then the supply trucks stop coming. So the kids do like that, living where we live, knowing some of them might know more, might think they know more than they do, and no problem, I can just go in the bush and I live. I get that all the time. And I'm like, okay. So a lot of survival, a lot of outdoor, and there is some cannibalism in it, just a little bit. They do actually like that. And I just messaged Rob Grice on Facebook and I asked him if he would do classroom visits, and he said yes. So he came to our class, my students talked to him. Oh, my students didn't talk, they gave their questions to me and I asked. So that worked really well, and he's currently on a break finishing his second novel, right, or his sequel to Moon of the Crested Snow, so he's not doing visits as well. And then this one, or If I Go Missing, I think is Taryn's favorite.
I did really like If I Go Missing.
It's Brianna Johnny, she's 14, and she writes a letter to the Winnipeg Police Chief, asking what he would do if she goes missing as an Indigenous girl.
I think one of the beauties of our resource list is it's so vast that there's something in there for everybody. Like, there's tons of graphic text, there's children's text, there's poetry, there's short stories, there's novels, and Moon of the Crested Snow is a good example. You could put that book anywhere and make it work. It is accessible, it is interesting, particularly, as Michelle said, we live in the north. As you're reading it, you're going, wow, this feels like something that could happen tomorrow. So we will share that resource list, but it has been a really enjoyable journey, I think, because we're English teachers, we love to read, finding the texts for this class.
And as Taryn said, we've made a very concerted effort to make sure we were including Indigenous text in all of our grades. So I often teach the grade 12 university English course, for example. And one of the ways I start off that course is by setting up literature circles. So my students get the opportunity to choose from a selection of books, and then based on their book, they're put into small groups that they can, read the book and kind of have that support and those discussions with their peers who are reading the book. And I jump in there from time to time to help guide them in their discussions as well. So I've used books like Firekeeper's Daughter, In Search of April Raintree, Kiss of the Fur Queen, to kind of facilitate those literature circles. And the students get options for choice. They get to read books that they're a little bit, they get to have some agency in choosing the books that they're interested in. And then getting to read those in literature circles means they can go on that journey with their peers together. They can ask questions, they can explore the text together. And I think it's a really positive way to incorporate Indigenous text and Indigenous voices. We also have tons of short stories and poetry pieces that we use in a variety of the English classes as well.
So the next thing we wanted to speak about was the use of podcasts in our classrooms. There are more and more podcasts available these days. I can speak to Story Keepers personally, and I can click it, and then Matt, just put in the chat if anything's not working. So the Story Keepers has a very casual conversation feel to it, and as an example, I read The Strangers over Christmas, and then in January that was the podcast that was featured. So it's pretty current, and this is certainly one. I'm just trying to get through them when I walk around town in the evenings. Some other ones we have found, and this one actually was very good, the 7 Indigenous, this is from CBC, and it actually gives us examples of podcasts to enlighten you. So I personally hope to get through some of these podcasts, but there is lots here where we actually bring that voice into our classroom. And although we can only speak to Red Lake is very far north for sure. We don't have a lot of elders in our school on a regular basis for a number of reasons, one being COVID, but also just a lack of access sometimes. So we are trying to bring in that authentic, genuine voice, and podcasts allow us to do that. The other thing that a lot of Indigenous text is so contemporary and the authors are so accessible, and it really does allow us to hear what they were thinking when they were writing, or even better, posting a question on Twitter and allowing students to ask those questions. That has been a powerful tool that we've been able to use. So there's a couple other here. I've never used this one. Michelle?
Oh yes, this is from Inappropriate Questions from CBC, and it's Are You Full Native? And how some people find that question offensive, and the responses that I got from some of my students were amazing, because for some of them that's their experience as well. And very, I'm reading them, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And we've talked before about how in English class kids open up to you. So, we're gonna talk about that in a bit too.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're trying to keep an eye on the time. And Tasting Freedom, Michelle, that was yours as well.
Yes, it was, I wanted Vashon to come up to our classroom so we could throw a medicine ball at her, because it's a riot about the food at a residential school in Edmonton, and they actually threw a medicine ball at the principal and took him out. So,
Our next slide has film. We do use a lot of film in our class. We had the pleasure of doing a book study with Wab Canoe last summer. And one of the challenges of the book study was to watch Eighth Fire, and I did. It's all on YouTube, and it's really powerful, and again, captures that voice so well. I know, Michelle, you use the J.J. Harper story in almost every class you teach.
Yeah.
So, of course, film is a resource that teachers use a lot, and CBC Gem has, Trickster is on CBC Gem, and we recently accessed that. There's a lot of material out there, and we appreciate how hard it can be to sift through all that material. So one of our goals today was just to sort of say, here, there's a lot out there, but here's what we've used. Have a listen, have a look if you're thinking about bringing some of this voice into your room.
I'm in contact with Evan Monday to have Wab Canoe come to our classroom. He does do that, but he is very busy as the NDP leader. Wab Bryce, I told you that I followed on Facebook, and Jesse Thistle, they email us sometimes when we ask some questions, and they send us signed book plates. I was super excited about it. I didn't think the kids would be, but they were. We got our next book, like, oh, what, these ones aren't autographed too?
We didn't actually know what a book plate was until this happened.
Yeah.
And it was a little signed card that sits in the cover of the books. And the kids think that's pretty neat that they have been, they have that connection to the author. Yeah, and we also have included some artwork in our classes as well, in English classes and in our other art classes, because when we're talking about bringing Indigenous voice to our students and into our classes, we think of Indigenous voice and text in a really broad kind of way, right? So artwork is also text. It carries messages to our students. For example, the image we have up on the screen by Norval Morisseau is about, was kind of inspired by the Seven Fallen Feathers. Yeah, the painter, inspired by Norval Morisseau after,
His son did it.
yeah, it was Christian did it. After the inquest into the 7 students that passed away in Thunder Bay. We also have, luckily, access to a artist by the name of Patrick Hunter, who is a two-spirited Indigenous artist, who's a local of the Red Lake area. I actually went to school with him and grew up with him. So we're able to reach out to him from time to time and get him to bring his expertise and his voice into the classroom as well. And also somehow he gave us this slideshow. So we have to credit Patrick with the artwork that's in the background of our slideshow. So sometimes it pays to go to school with a famous Canadian artist. So that is the end of our section on classroom resources. We wanted to briefly speak about some of the strategies that we have used in order to safely present some of this material to all of our students. And we want to show a short video that Michelle almost always plays in her classrooms to help kids understand. Oh, what do you want me to do?
I can explain it.
How long is it?
It's 3 minutes.
I think we should.
Okay.
We can cut out 7.
It's for guys that you don't know
Where the hell
is
have you
there.
been? Everywhere I look, you're not where I need you to be. It's not my imagination. Now, where the hell do you go every day?
To the bathroom, sir.
To the bathroom. To the damn bathroom. For 40 minutes a day? What are you doing there? We're T-minus 0 here. I put a lot of faith in you.
There's no bathroom for me here.
What do you mean there's no bathroom for you here?
There is no bathroom. There are no colored bathrooms in this building. on any building outside the West Campus, which is half a mile away. Did you know that? I have to walk to Timbuktu just to relieve myself. And I can't use one of the handy bikes. Picture that, Mr. Harrison. My uniform, skirt below my knees, my heels, and a simple string of pearls. Well, I don't own pearls. Lord knows you don't pay colors enough to afford pearls. And I work like a dog, day and night, living off of coffee from a pot none of you want to touch. So, excuse me if I have to go to the restroom a few times a day.
There you have it. No more colored restrooms. No more white restrooms. Just plain old toilets. Go wherever you damn well please. Preferably closer to your desk.
Go ahead, Michelle. Okay, so we use that as some of the students may not realize the bias and the privilege that they have as we approach these texts. We also examine current events. We show Colonization Road. Recently, two communities in our region were going through the renaming process of their own colonization roads or avenues or whatever the streets were called. But so we look at that because it's in the news, and I always tell them I think it's a silly name for a road to begin with. If I was naming roads, it'd be Michelle Avenue and Sandburn Drive, but you know. I do a lot of oral assessment and student voice using universal design for learning because students might need that instead of doing it an alternative way.
Well, we also think the nature of the text and the nature of the topics promotes conversation and questioning, and we're not sure if it's an outcropping of virtual learning, but our kids are very, very quiet these days. They're really hesitating to offer ideas and come up with answers, so we're really promoting them to speak. Tell me what you think, and also tell your own story and tell us where you fit in all of this. And I think oral assessment is a natural fit in the work we're doing, and we're trying to do a better job of, like Michelle said, not all of our learners put their best work down on paper, but their ideas and their thoughts related to some of these topics are truly amazing, and we want to make sure we can capture them.
And then we do work with some experiential learning. My class is going to be making some loose stew and bannock and jam after March break. Hopefully that goes well.
So finally, on the next slide, we just have the examples of two platforms or tools we use, and both of these can help capture student voice. They both require your board to buy a license, but it really does allow students to speak their mind and speak their learning in a way that is very non-threatening. It is just them and the computer, because a lot of kids don't want to present orally in front of their class, and we would really encourage you to take a look at these tools if this is something you'd like to explore further. Michelle, you said you've used Perusal?
Yes, and they basically just have, not the only purpose of you can ask questions and they have conversations, not on the paper, on the screen, right on the PDF of the text.
Like live?
Yeah.
Finally, we really had to do some work around supporting our learners, and Brittany just has a couple of slides here about what we did to do that.
Yeah, so one of the comments I had in a recent class when I was introducing all of these Indigenous texts was that it was some pretty heavy stuff. There's some pretty hard conversations, and I don't know where I heard it first, but we've kind of used this idea of like, we want to have safe spaces in the classroom and safe spaces to have these discussions, but we also want to move towards brave spaces, which was knowing that this conversation is often going to be difficult and we want to have it in the safest way possible, but we do need to have the conversation and we do need to hear some truths and kind of have a discussion about that if we're going to move forward to a better place in a better way, right? So in supporting our students through doing this work, we set up some norms for the classroom. We ask our students to participate in setting up those norms. We spend a lot of time highlighting that there are resources for support available to them. So we have a student counselor here at the school who can support them if they feel like they need to have those conversations outside of the class. We have 24-hour crisis response unit, kids help phone. We kind of make sure that they know they have those supports, and also hopefully connect them to safe adults in the school. And we make sure that the conversation leading up to the introduction of these stories is that we are free to share our reactions and reflections on course content, but we do want to be considerate to the experiences of others and that we may not know all the experiences of others. We also make sure to let them know that there are limits to our confidentiality. So in doing this work, we have had the experience where students have come forward to disclose things to us at points. So before we start these conversations, I want them to know, what my limits are for confidentiality, and at some point, if they bring certain information to me, I have to kind of move that forward to the appropriate authority. We're really mindful to share any experiences of harm to self or harm to others, and we want to make sure students kind of focus on ideas and not move towards speaking or thinking about specific people, so that the whole conversation can be very positive and kind of move us forward and not just harp on any one particular thing that's personal maybe. And mindful that the course content may be upsetting or triggering. So before we engage in that as well, I do have trigger warnings on my course outlines and in my text, and I make a real effort to highlight that there may be some potential things that could be triggering or upsetting coming up, and make sure those opportunities for students to get that extra support or do what they need to do in order to safely and bravely have these conversations is super important.
Michelle's even sent trigger warnings home to families in the past to say, this is what we're studying, this is what you might want to know. So we have a video here of our student counselor. We're going to skip it.
Hi.
Oh, sorry, Stephanie. And we are going to leave you just with 3 quotes. These are from 3 different schools in our school, 3 different students in our school board about how they were made to feel given the work we've done in the past year. So I'll give you a quick second to read these. We are very proud of these kids. And then finally, I'm just going to draw your attention to the last one because it's our own student. It was Michelle's student.
My exam.
Indigenous writers demonstrate how they have endured in the face of hardship without giving up. However, the biggest lesson I learned from this course was that by taking the time to learn about the Canadian Indigenous experience, I am able to be part of the change. I am able to be part of the change to better Canada. So at this point, we are finished our official presentation, and our nerves have kind of settled. So we are happy to take any questions that there may be.
That was a great presentation. You all did so good. There's nothing to be nervous about. You could tell you guys are doing great work over there. So does anybody have any questions for Michelle, Brittany, or Taryn? Check the chat. Okay, so we're gonna go into our first question. It says, were you met with any resistance with this, and how did you deal with it?
So I'll answer that. I would say our first couple of times we were not met with resistance. But on the third time offering this course in this building, we were met with resistance from a
Can I just interrupt for 1 second?
Of course.
I had a canned answer though.
Oh.
Because I knew what they, in case they did, I was prepared.
Yep.
Because I knew what they did last year with Brittany in grade 10. And
You
it
would
was,
have canned answer for parents.
yeah, it was Shakespeare and 1984. And I was going to say, well, was anybody upset that you only read books by two dead white English guys last year?
Yeah.
Not that the books aren't important, but
Yeah. So I had a parent on the phone at the end of our course in January, and she was absolutely adamant that we were not doing the right thing. We were giving Indigenous people too much voice. We were giving some of our Indigenous students too many opportunities, and I actually took a breath and I very clearly told her that that is not the case, that it was our responsibility to ensure that these voices get into our classrooms, that it was our responsibility to make sure our clientele sees themselves in our content. And Brittany used the word brave spaces. I think that's it. Like, it does require some courageousness and you have to believe in it, but I think we do, but we believe in it for all the right reasons. You know, we live in Northwestern Ontario. These are our kids. These are our stories, and it is our responsibility to share them. Does it come at a cost? I don't believe so. I think that room in Hidden Figures pretty much represents what the English has looked like for a long time. So we're proud of this work and stand behind it. So that has been our answer to resistors. And people, the resistance may still be there, but we're working actively.
and when you asked me to do this the first time, because it was 2 weeks before the course started, I took my plan from the year before for grade 11 University English, and I kept it the same. I just replaced the books. So everything that we were doing was still Englishy, just with different text.
But surprisingly, Jess, a ton of positive feedback from parents and from kids. We get far more positive feedback than I think we meet resistance.
Yeah, the only
That's great.
I've ever come across in my classes has really been about a few comments about the difficult content of the books and how some of these stories are incredibly hard to read. And I think that's an important part to note. Like, there is such a history of incredibly difficult stories and hardships for Indigenous students and Indigenous people, and that is our job right now, if we're going to move forward into reconciliation, is to speak the truth to those, address those, and then have that discussion, and hopefully we can all move forward into a better way.
You're also passionate about your work. This is great. And actually, I think one of you did touch base on what's coming up in the next question already. But the next question is, what did you have to cut out of your programming to accommodate these new resources?
I did cut a couple things, but that was only due to the quadmester system and COVID. That had nothing to do with the text for me personally.
I don't think we've cut anything that matters more. Like, I think we're still preparing our kids for English in the following grade. We're still following the curriculum. Like, the English curriculum says nothing about what you must study. It just says a variety of texts, a variety of media, and we're certainly doing that. In fact, I think we're doing a better job of doing that.
Yeah, I think in the past we had done, a text of Shakespeare in grade 9, in grade 10, in grade 11, and grade 12. So if Michelle takes out one Shakespeare text in NBE 3U, if they're still getting opportunities to read Shakespeare, if that's something that they really like or they really want, it's still in those other voices, those other perspectives are still there. We're just, as Taryn said, doing a better job of including more Indigenous voice, including more diversity in the text and the voices that we're giving to our students. And I think that's so important, especially in the global world we live in now. I want my students to have the ability to connect with people and experiences and kind of like travel like I did, in terms of seeing the world through different eyes and new perspectives. That's what makes me passionate about English, and I think this is a really important move forward in English.
So if anything, nothing was taken away. It's just been more opportunity added. That's great.
And we're far from done. Like, we're just scratching the surface right now. We have lots more work we want to do, and with COVID ending, we're hoping to bring more people into the building, get ourselves out experiencing more things. Like, we do our best. We do live in a very remote northern community, but we do our best to outreach as best we can. I mean, we always can do more.
This is great. And so we are at the 2:30 mark, but there is one question that popped up in the chat. I don't know if you want to answer quickly. It says, have any of you gone up north to First Nation events?
So I have never gone up north to a First Nation event. I had an invite a couple of years ago. I was mentoring a student who was teaching in Deer Lake, and I had the opportunity to go up there, and it was canceled. I have gone down south for some First Nations events. For example, I am from Eagle Lake on my mother's side originally, and we try to get to one of our partner communities, Wabasing, as often as we are able to. COVID, of course, has limited that, but we look forward to getting out to some of our communities more. Kanchicum is very close to us, so you know we certainly could do better in that area and hope to in the future. At least I do.
No non-COVID times though, we go to the feast down in Wabasing.
Yeah.
I've gone up to my son's father's in Norway, Manitoba. For 3 days up there.
And I'm also a volleyball coach, and we have tried numerous times to kind of get our volleyball and basketball teams to go out to Kanchicum as well and play sports with the teams there. Sometimes it's fallen apart a couple times in the past, but yeah, we're trying to make that effort.
Trying. We know that work's important for sure. And even participating in an event like this helps us make connections and meet people, and that's probably the best way for us to get out there.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much. It was a great presentation. Thank you for answering the questions. Michelle, Brittany, and Taryn from Red Lake District High School, thank you so much for your time. So as we're getting into the break, I guess I need to remind everyone that the show play to win code word slide today is discover. Yeah, write down the code and enter it during break. We're going to go into the trade show next. IT is going to play a quick video to show how it works. And if you need any further assistance, please connect with the help desk under event information. Thank you, everyone.